Dr. Joe, I think we can start. Dr. Joe? Dr. Joe?
Yes.
I think we can start.
I can start? Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, great.
Hello.
No,
Hello?
not you, Dr. Cindy, Dr. Joe, please. Yeah, Dr. Joe.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Joe, we're listening. Dr. Joe, please. Yeah. Dr. Joe, we can hear you, Dr. Joe, ma'am. Okay, yes. Kindly unmute. You are muted, Dr. Joe. You are muted. Kindly unmute. Dr. Joe, want you to start the meeting, ma'am? Okay, I think she has a network issue. Okay.
Would you like me to go ahead?
Please hold on for a while, please. Just a moment. Just
Sure.
I think the monitor has a network issue. Let me
Okay.
check on that. Okay. Okay. Okay, I think the monitor has a network issue, but we can start. On the agenda, we have prayer. We need to start our meeting with prayer, a very short one. Then I want to call on us to observe individual prayer, at least for 1 minute, please. Individual prayer in your own way, please. 1 minute. Okay, Amen. So the next on our agenda is to start by welcoming our guest speaker, Dr. Cindy from Nebraska University, United States. We are glad to have you, Ma, and we appreciate your honoring our invitation. You're welcome, Ma. We equally recognize tonight on the call the drug information specialty coordinators led by pharmacist Folashade Lawal, another member of the team. We welcome you and we recognize you. We equally recognize on the call very important personality, the ESCO members of the CPAN, another fellows of PSN, fellows of the WPC here present, directors of pharmacy, and our leaders here present. We are welcome. We welcome you to the very important meeting. So next on this agenda is to introduce our guest speaker. Dr. Cindy is Dr. Cindy is a pathologist from Nebraska Medical Center, US. She received her medical degree from university and she has been practicing for the past 20 years. She's here tonight to share her expertise with us. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Cindy to this very important meeting. Ma, you are welcome, and you have the floor to start your meeting, please.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction. I'm going to share my screen.
You have the permission to do that, okay?
Great. Good evening, and it's a great pleasure to be here, and thank you for the invitation. As mentioned, I have pathology training. I also decided to shift careers slightly and went into library science, and I've been a librarian at the University of Nebraska Medical Center for over 20 years now. Just so you have a visual picture of where I'm located, I'm in Omaha, Nebraska at the end of this arrow. Nebraska is about 1/5 the size of Nigeria, but only has about 1% of its population. So a very rural state. And this is even more true because half of that population is in Omaha, where I'm located. This is a picture of one side of the medical center where where I work, which is a large tertiary medical center, including a lot of different training programs and a large tertiary care hospital. Some of the nationally known programs are in the areas of biocontainment and transplant and primary care. I have the privilege of serving as the library's liaison to the College of Pharmacy. So I get to teach Introduction to Drug Information to new students. I also serve as liaison to the hospital's pharmacy and the Drug Information Center at our hospital. And the head of the Drug Information Center sets up appointments for me about every other month to train new pharmacists and new rotating pharmacy residents and rotating students on advanced PubMed search skills. And when she and I talked with Dr. Bello, she thought, this might be useful to you also. So really this session is focused on advanced skills. Oh, sorry, didn't mean to go forward. I'll go to chat again and put in the handout web address. In the handout, there is and again, that handout, I just chatted the address for the handout, so you should be able to get to it. But in that handout, there is an appendix. So if you wanted any information on basic keyword and basic subject heading searching, that's in the appendix, along with a list of PubMed field tags, which I find really useful. The focus of this session, though, are really on lessons I learned after I became a professional librarian. So I've been searching for a while, but didn't know a lot of the things that are specific to PubMed that can help make your search more thorough or more quickly focused or just faster. And so these are the lessons I learned that I'm going to present. So I won't be going through the objectives in sequence, but more going through lessons. And at the end, I think I will have met these objectives, or hopefully you will have met them. When I was a new librarian, I went to a talk by one of the trainers associated with PubMed. And she pointed out that certain topics are indexed in a predictable way by Medline's indexers, and Medline is the bulk of PubMed, and that you can use, therefore, these certain heading, subheading combinations to help you focus quickly on topics. And I've listed some of the templates that result from these predictable methods of indexing in the handout. I'm going to focus on the first example I have here, which I find the most useful of these. I imagine you run into adverse effects of drugs and need to see the past literature on that type of adverse effect, or are asked for help by your clinical colleagues in searching for literature about specific types of adverse effects. Certainly that's something that comes to our Drug Information Center and to me as a librarian. And I'll get questions like, please find me the past literature on sulfamethoxazole-induced lung disease. Well, if you just put in words that you think authors will use into the search, that's a very difficult search because sulfamethoxazole is also used to treat lung diseases. So the adverse effect literature is a relatively small part of what's out there. But indexers, fortunately, when they encounter this type of article, usually use a drug heading, so hopefully something like sulfamethoxazole, with an adverse effects subheading, and then pair the diseases heading, like a lung diseases heading, with an etiology subheading. And in my introduction to drug information class, I make people say out loud several times, adverse effect of a drug as cause of a disease. And I make them repeat that so they can remember this template, because I think this one is so useful and so helpful. Now, I've laid out what I hope will be that search, but I don't know the exact headings until I look them up in the MESH database. So I've gone to pubmed.gov and I click on the MESH database link to get to that dictionary or list of headings so that I can find the exact wording. I'm going to start with lung diseases and hit the search button. And I would do this live and make it more exciting, except I wasn't sure about all this internet bandwidth. That'd be easier with PowerPoint. So here I am at the lung diseases heading, and I can click on that heading to see the detailed view with the available subheadings. Before I go ahead and pick a subheading, though, I should really scroll down and look at the trees. When I search for lung diseases, I will automatically also be searching for all of these narrower headings, which is the great thing about PubMed, the fact that you get this default explosion, that's what they call it in PubMed language, explosion of the heading to include these narrower headings, so you don't have to list all those words. And if I assign a subheading to lung diseases as a heading, I'll get the same subheading with the narrower headings. But before I go on and do this lung diseases search, I should consider respiratory tract diseases, because that might include things not included in lung diseases. And I think maybe I want to go broader. So I can click on this heading. And again, I'm going to scroll down and look at the tree. I see, as expected, that this includes the narrower lung diseases heading. It also includes bronchial diseases like asthma. And I had naively thought that asthma was a lung disease. I hadn't considered that it might be in a separate category. So I really do want to go up to this respiratory tract diseases heading. So I'll scroll up and pick etiology. You might also want to pick chemically induced, but I wanted to let you know that when you do pick etiology, it also will retrieve chemically induced. There are subheading trees. So etiology is a broad subheading, and under it is chemically induced and genetics and some other narrower subheadings. So I find it easier to remember etiology and just know that it'll retrieve chemically induced. Chemically induced does seem like the one that might be more relevant for drugs, but I should warn you that if the drug doesn't directly cause the damage, if it causes an immune derangement that then causes the disease, the disease won't necessarily get indexed as being chemically induced. So I recommend etiology, or using both and oring them together. So I can add this to the search builder, and it formats the search nicely for me, puts in the quotes in the mesh tag. And then I go on to search for my sulfamethoxazole heading. And again, I want to look at the tree to make sure I'm getting the level of heading I want in that tree. When I scroll down, I see that the sulfamethoxazole heading is broader than the trimethoprim sulfamethoxazole drug combination heading, which is great because I think actually that combination is used more frequently than sulfamethoxazole by itself. So I definitely want to include that. But I don't want to go all the way up to all sulfonamides. So I'm going to scroll back up, pick adverse effect. And again, adverse effect, like etiology, is a broader subheading. Adverse effect includes poisoning, toxicity. So you get those automatically when you pick adverse effects. I'm going to add this to my search builder, and then I have the search. I do want to warn you, in case some of you don't use mesh searches frequently, that if I at this point went on to or in trimethoprim, for example, I might want that to be part of this drug concept. If I went on to do that and I used the drop down to select oring it to sulfamethoxazole, it would or it to sulfamethoxazole, but the parentheses would be wrong. So I would have to fix those. You want anything that's ored together to be inside a set of uninterrupted parentheses. So any parentheses inside it need to be opened and closed inside it, or it gets broken up and not considered as a concept. And you end up with everything about trimethoprim, whether it has anything to do with respiratory tract diseases. So just remember to look at your parentheses and make sure any ored together things are inside an uninterrupted set of parentheses, and take out any stray parentheses. So I'm searching PubMed. I got 230 results with this search, and I see a couple that are relevant right away. I wouldn't have known that this fourth one was relevant, except I did read the abstract and found it was relevant. I'm not going to make you watch me go through all 230 results, but I found 23 that were relevant out of those 230. And by that time, I was feeling like if I lost those, I'd be really unhappy. And this is my second lesson I learned. PubMed occasionally resets its servers, and you can lose those selections, or you can lose, if you add things to that temporary clipboard, that can be lost. So I really recommend that if you're going to select things from a long list, you start using my NCBI collections. So at this point, I would send these to a collection so that I had them later and I could look at them again later in case something happened and I lost this list. I would be given a chance to create a new collection or add to an existing one. In this case, I wanted a new one. I'm going to call it sulfa-induced lung disease and add it. And then if I'm not logged in, it gives me a chance to log in. And my PubMed or my NCBI is now using a third-party login system. So you can't just create an account on their system. You have to have one of these other types of accounts to link it to. And of course, you can create a free Google account, so anyone can do this. There are more login options that you can go through your institution. I checked, there are several institutions in Nigeria that are enabling this third-party login. So with your login from your institution, you might be able to log in. Once you log in with one of these third parties, you're given the chance to create a new account or link that third party to an existing account. And then you might have to go through the process again of creating your collection and adding things. But usually it goes straight to that. Now, I really like collections because they're permanent and I can get to them several days from now. If somebody calls me away from the computer, I still have that later when I come back a day later. But if I'm going to be doing repeated searches, I want to know what I've already looked at and be able to tell that I've looked at it and I selected it. And the clipboard is better for that. So you can add things to both places, and that's what I generally do. I would then send it to a clipboard, and you can see that once you've added those items to a clipboard, it says item in clipboard. And once I see that in my new list of search results for a new search that I've created, I can just skip past that without reading the title, knowing that I already have that in my list. And I can get to the clipboard through the clipboard link under the search box. I can get to my saved collection through my NCBI login link. Through the dashboard. And I have lots of saved searches and saved collections. The new one usually appears at the bottom. Now, if you are going to use my NCBI, I really recommend you do a couple of customization steps. In the filters area on the dashboard, there's a manage filters link. And you can go to, this is something you only have to do once. So once you do it, you can forget about it. Not steps you need to remember forever. But if you go to link out, there's some institutions that have set up filters and link icons within PubMed that are specific to that institution. I know that at least one institution in Nigeria has that. And then you can select the filter and link icon. And then I know Hinari is available in some institutions in Nigeria. So you might want to search for Hinari and pick that filter and link icon. That would get you a lot of full text potentially. The other thing I recommend you, definitely recommend that you customize is the highlighting, because this can make keyword searching so much easier. And once you're logged in, you might lose your institution setup highlighting. So when you log into my NCBI, if you click on your login link, you can pick account settings. You can go down to NCBI site preferences, click on highlighting, and you can pick one of these beautiful colors. Otherwise, by default, it will just be bold. And there are certain things in the citations that are bold, like the titles are sometimes bold in the abstract view or whatever. And so those bolded words won't stand out. And when you're doing a keyword search, especially just guessing the words an author might have used, it's really helpful to have the search terms highlighted. So I strongly recommend one of those colors. And once you do these steps, it can be puzzling to figure out how you're going to get back to PubMed. The quickest way actually is go to the dashboard and either click at the top on the search button next to the PubMed search box, or go to one of your collections or searches. So I mentioned that I learned about focusing searches using headings and subheadings when I was a relatively new librarian. And I was using those skills at my first job where I was a reference librarian, a research librarian. And I'd produced a beautiful search for someone. And they came back to me with something like this. Here's an article. It talks about the concepts of interest to me in the title. Here it is, drug-induced respiratory distress syndrome, falling trimethoprim sulfa. Why didn't you find it with your search? And I was aghast. I thought, well, maybe it wasn't in PubMed, but it was. Then I thought, well, why didn't my mesh search find that? So I looked for mesh terms, and usually there's a mesh link on the right, but there was none. And this is how I learned that there are unindexed records in PubMed, something you probably all know, but I hadn't known. And it's just very important to think about these unindexed records. So I'm going to talk a bit about the life cycle of a PubMed record, which is what I then learned about. These days, publishers create the initial PubMed record. And I found 3 journals that have different characteristics as far as PubMed goes. The African Journal of Pediatric Surgery is a journal that has its full text in PubMed Central. It's also been accepted for Medline indexing, so considered a very high standard journal. And on the other hand, this journal, and I've forgotten whether it's Applied Biochemistry and Biotechnology, I believe. I have the abbreviation, but not the full thing. Applied Biotechnology and Biochemistry is not deposited in PubMed Central, so they don't make their full text freely available that way, but they are indexed in Medline. And then this last journal is deposited in PubMed Central, but they have not yet been either maybe they haven't applied for inclusion in Medline or haven't yet been accepted for Medline indexing. So these are all slightly different, but they all have records in PubMed. The ones that'll go on to be Medline records are considered pre-Medline records. The ones that'll never have a Medline record are non-Medline PubMed records. And the things that the publisher puts in are the citation information, so all the authors' names, the article title, the journal title, the volume, the issue, the pages if that's available, the digital object identifier, the author's affiliations, the abstract, the author keywords. They put in the language. So if it's in English or another language, that will be indicated. All of those things are put in by the publisher and are there right away as soon as the record is in PubMed. And then some of these records get more stuff. So some of them go on to be indexed for Medline. And an indexer at the National Library of Medicine adds subject headings and subheadings. So the mesh headings and subheadings, they say whether it's about humans or animals, whether it's about children or adults or the aged, whether it's about males or females, whether it's randomized controlled trials or a review article. All of that information is added by the indexer. And so it's only going to be in the records that are in Medline. This really affects how you have to search if you want to search all of PubMed. You can get everything in pre-Medline and non-Medline PubMed Central, as well as everything in Medline, using a keyword search, as long as you only use language filters, date filters, or the systematic review filter, which is a little different than any of the other article type filters in PubMed. It's sort of a mini search. It has some keywords in it. It has some journal titles like Cochrane Database of Systematic Reviews, tends to be found by this. So it will find unindexed records. You can apply systematic review filter and still get unindexed systematic reviews. Whereas if you apply a randomized controlled trial filter, you've eliminated all of the records in these non-indexed populations. When you search for indexed records, you can use subject headings, you can use keywords, you can use any filter you like. So you can say, this is about humans, this is a randomized controlled trial, it's in males, etc. But remember that when you apply that humans limit or that age limit, gender limit, you're getting rid of all of this unindexed stuff. And some of that stuff stays unindexed for a long time, even if it's destined to be indexed. When I checked, the African Journal of Pediatric Surgery was getting indexed within a month, but this biotechnology journal, they had many, many articles that weren't indexed after a whole year. So you can miss a lot of current literature if you forget that those records are there. So the upshot of that is you have to do a keyword search. if you want to see the unindexed records. So you have to find some ways of finding the ways authors talk about their topics. And of course, you start with your own knowledge. I had a list of search results that I found with my subject heading search that I can get terms from. The MESH databases has entry terms and narrower headings that can be really useful when building a search. You can search the internet for synonyms. I can put in sulfamethoxazole synonyms, and I'll probably find some. It might even lead me to PubChem, where there are beautiful lists of drug synonyms or alternate names for drugs. The MESH database also has some of the more common alternate name for drugs. If you're lucky, you might have Martindale's. That's something we have to pay for to get, and maybe some of your institutions also pay for it. But it has foreign and English generic names, CAS registry numbers, common abbreviations, and international brand names. So it's a really useful source for names to put in searches. I started off when I realized I needed a keyword search for the sulfamethoxazole-induced respiratory diseases by going through the results I had already. And I see that associated is used for the induced concept. There's respiratory, pneumothorax, respiratory associated, respiratory exposed. So I gathered some of those terms into a list, and I like to build my lists in Word documents, and I like to have one on each line because I find it easier to see them and know whether I already have something if there's one on a line. And then I have a way to put them into searches quickly that I'll show you in a moment. So after going through all 23, this is the list I had. And obviously I could go on and search further and find additional terms. Then I decided to go to the MESH database to build a list of terms for sulfamethoxazole. Search for sulfamethoxazole and click on the record to see the detailed view. When you're doing this, but you probably wouldn't have this problem, but my students in Introduction to Drug Information get so involved in satisfying my need to see alternate names that they sometimes forget the English generic name. So don't forget that. Remember the English generic name. And then these entry terms are names that have been frequently used in PubMed. And so I can copy those and paste them into my document as names. And I recommend pasting them in as with a text-only tool so you get rid of the bullets. I'm going to show you how that helps and how the replace all in Word can really save you time. So I pasted those in as plain text. I then went on to the narrower heading, which I think might actually be more useful, these combination drugs. And I had this huge list of terms to paste in. So I used the paste and keep text only feature to get rid of those bullets and pasted those in. And then I went ahead to take out all the words or all the phrases that contained a word I already had in my search as a single word. Anything that's hyphenated in PubMed is treated to some extent as two words. So I know that if I search with SMX, I'll find anything that has TMP-SMX. A search term that has a hyphen in it will find the thing that has the hyphen. It'll also find the thing that has the space. So I tend to keep the one with the hyphen. PubMed has this, doesn't actually do adjacency searching when you search for something in quotes. It looks at a list of phrases that the PubMed powers that be have decided they're willing to search as phrases. And if it's not there, it might end up breaking up your term. It doesn't do that as often if you hyphenate it. So I've started hyphenating a lot of my things that had spaces in them instead of you putting them in quotes. So I've taken out these things that had alternate terms that would retrieve the things I've taken out. Brings me down to this. And now I need to OR my terms, my alternate terms for each of the three concepts together with just the terms for that concept. I'm just going to OR them all together and then break apart the concept, because I can OR these all together quickly by using words replace all feature to replace a line return, which is represented by $P, with an OR. And I want these things to be in the titles of the article, because I know that there's lots of articles about sulfamethoxazole being used to treat lung diseases, where they'll talk about adverse effects that are unrelated to that lung disease and sulfamethoxazole. But if all those words are in the title, it'll be likely to be relevant. So I'm going to put all of these in the title. I know it's not completely thorough, but it's a good try, and it's probably about as good as I can do with keywords within a short amount of time, at any rate. So I've put in the P, and then I'm going to use the title tag, which is either square bracket TI square bracket or square bracket title square bracket, space, capital O, capital R, space. And when I hit replace all, I get this long list. And because there were some extra lines left between my concepts, it's very easy to find the weird stuff that I have to take out and replace with just empty lines so that I can break my concepts up. So now I have my three concepts. Each of the words is being targeted at searching the title only. I need to put parentheses around the terms for each concept, and then the different concepts together. The parentheses are required to make PubMed do the OR operations before it does the ands that join the separate concepts. If I don't do that, I'll end up with just tons of stuff about, it'll start reading left to right. I'll come up to sulfamethoxazole, and everything will have something to do with at least induction in sulfamethoxazole. But then I'll just OR in all the literature about these things, whether or not they have anything to do with the preceding concepts. So those parentheses are really important, as you probably know. So I can paste, one of the things my students taught me is that I don't have to get rid of those line returns. So I can leave things nicely indexed in the documents I keep in Word or my records of my searches, and just paste the searches into the search box, and PubMed will get rid of the line returns. I was using the PubMed this PubMed mesh database. So I'm just going to pop these into the PubMed search builder. I can drag this little corner down to see the whole thing. Looks okay. I click search PubMed. And that gave me 18 results that had relevant words in their titles. And of course, this isn't a perfect search. I could go on refining this and adding new terms for quite a while. Now, the next lesson I learned over time was that I could save a lot of time by removing results of previously performed searches. And in this case, you just go to the advanced search page, and I can add this last query to my query box by using the little ellipsis buttons under actions. And then I can take out either my NCBI collection, which I've looked at, so that appears in my history, or I could take out all the results of my mesh search if I was really confident that I'd seen everything relevant in that mesh search. I'm going to take out everything in my NCBI collection. So I add that with not and search. And that quickly gets me down to a smaller number to review, still about 9 or 10. And 3 of these were relevant. And that's one thing about keyword searches, you always have some that are not relevant. This first one is the search that the article I was presented. So I know that one's not indexed. And to see what happened with the other two, I can go to display options, pick abstract, and I will then see these couple of records. This last one has some publication types, but no mesh term, or this is the one that, no, it's the first one, the one that I was given the article for. So that's not indexed. It's got publication types, but no subject headings. I'm going to look at the last one next, and I expanded the mesh terms. It has pulmonary fibrosis, which I assume is a heading under the respiratory tract diseases heading with an etiology subheading. So that would have worked. But it's indexing as being about an adverse effect of trimethoprim, not an adverse effect of sulfamethoxazole. So that would be something to consider then. Do I want to add all the adverse effects of trimethoprim to my search? And this one had a sulfamethoxazole heading with adverse effects, but it didn't have a lung disease. It had hypoxia, which isn't strictly speaking a disease, but it's certainly a sign, potentially a sign of lung disease or respiratory disease. You can left click on these headings and search in mesh and go to the heading in the mesh database to see where it sits. And I clicked on this one so I could scroll down and see the tree, and found out that that was a sign. It was under signs and symptoms respiratory instead of being a respiratory tract disease. So I could easily then pick etiology with this, add it to my search builder, copy that, and or it in my respiratory tract disease concept in my mesh search. I've been babbling on for a while. Does anybody have any questions? I'm sorry, I was forgetting to ask.
Kindly continue to the end
Thank you very much.
Keep continuing. Okay. Okay. Now, once I realized there was this huge unindexed part and an indexed part, and that I could focus on the index part using on the types of publications I wanted, using filters on the language, well, the language I could do either unindexed or indexed, but I could focus on the age group of interest, et cetera, in this indexed part. I wanted to be able to limit my keyword search potentially without filters, or my keyword and miss search without filters, to just the unindexed part. And I'm going to show you how you can do that. Also, I began saving keyword search strategies because I ended up producing like the child search strategy about 20 times before I decided it was time to start saving search strategies. So here I've done a search for articles about use of imatinib in therapy of patients with COVID. And I've limited the mesh search, the subject heading search, to randomized controlled trials. It's a mesh-based search. It's only going to find indexed records anyway. So I applied randomized controlled trials because that's what the search requester wanted. And they wanted English and in humans. So I limited it to that. That gave me 2 results. Then I need to do a keyword search. Before you do that keyword search, remember to clear the filters so that you aren't applying an RCT, a randomized controlled trial filter, to your keywords and losing all the unindexed things because you have that filter. Or the humans filter would also get rid of all the unindexed stuff. So I cleared my filters, took out the search strategy, and began building a keyword search. And I've been composing imatinib keyword searches for years. So I've finally saved one in my blog, which is available to everyone at pubmedsearches.blogspot.com. I searched for imatinib. I found this search, pasted into a document, went back, searched for COVID, copied that, ANDed those together. And now this is really the point of this whole exercise, not to show you that you can use my blog, which is great. And I hope you find something useful there, some useful search strategies, but mostly to show you that you can take out the index part of PubMed if you've already covered that with another search by adding to the end of your keyword search or a combined keyword mesh search where subject headings aren't required. You can add not Medline, so a space on each side of not, Medline with a subset tag. And in this case, they wanted randomized controlled trials. And in general, authors will mention the fact that they randomized something in the title or abstract since it's so difficult and they want credit for it. So adding and space on each side, random asterisk will limit somewhat to that random group. Added that to my search box, hit search, and I got these 3 results. And now if I want to save that search, the whole thing, the mesh and the keyword together, another thing that I've found useful is the fact that you can go to advanced. You can say number 18 or number 13, like, whichever numbers apply. My keyword is number 18, my mesh is number 13. I can OR those together. I can use the little drop down to add them to the history. And then I can use the actions column there to create alert, which will save that search strategy. I was initially afraid that if I use the number 13 or number 18, that's all it would save, not the actual terms, but it does bring the terms in and save those. And you can say, no, I don't want weekly results and just save them. My last little tip is that sometimes it's more helpful to take out publication types than to limit to a publication type. So I often have people who want all kinds of clinical studies, but they don't want to see case reports or reviews. And you may have times when you're preparing a formulary monograph when you at least want to get rid of the case reports. And it's very easy to do this on the advanced search page. You just you put your query in the query box. And so your topical query, and then you go to the all fields drop down, pick publication type, click on show index, and you can click on the types that you want to take out. So I'm clicking on case reports and review articles, and it's putting case reports publication type or review publication type. And I can simply add that with not to the end of my search, and it'll take out those 2 publication types. Which I think got rid of about 20 results in this case. So that can be useful at times. And I think I've covered my objectives, hopefully. Hopefully you've learned something. And I would be happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, Dr. Schmidt. Thank you for an in-depth presentation. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay. I apologize for the itchy at the beginning.
Oh,
and
no problem.
I was logged off. My system actually just hung up, and I had to make efforts to join with my phone.
Oh.
So Dr. Smith has been wonderful tonight, giving us an in-depth presentation on how to improve on our searches so that we can be more effective in our work as drug information specialists. I wouldn't know if Dr. Bello did any introduction while I was logged out. Dr. Bello, should I do an introduction?
You can do a brief one. I did a very short one. I can do another brief one. It's not so much. Yeah.
Okay. So actually, Dr. Schmidt, MD, is a pathologist in Omaha, Nebraska, which is affiliated with the Nebraska Medicine Medical Center. She also received a medical degree from University of Nebraska College of Medicine and has been in practice for more than 20 years. No wonder she has so much to give to us tonight. So we really appreciate the presentation so far. But just before we go to questions, I'd like us, I'm sure we have our questions ready. I'll do a brief introduction of the Drug Information Specialty Group Steering Committee members. And this includes the team lead coordinator in the person of pharmacist Folashade Lawal, who is also here tonight. I would like to welcome you. I would also acknowledge Dr. Bello, who is the deputy lead coordinator, and I've heard him speak at one time or the other tonight. I would also acknowledge Dr. Ejiro Akovovo, who is also on the call tonight. He's the PRO, Public Relations Officer of the group. We also have Dr. Comfort Olurishe, pardon me, who is the project manager. We have Dr. Charles Nwako, the editor-in-chief. We have pharmacist Okame Abaye, the treasurer. We also have pharmacist Rukayatu Muhammadu, the education committee secretary. And I happen to be the chairman of the education committee. Thank you so much for the opportunity again. Briefly, I would also like to acknowledge some special people in our midst tonight. I saw in the call list, I saw Dr. Olubusola Olugbake. I don't know if you are still on tonight.
Yes,
Dr. Olugbake, are you in with us?
Good evening, everyone. Yes, I am. A very
Okay, Dr.
enlightening
Olugbake
presentation. Thank you very much.
Okay, Dr. Olugbake is lecturer in the Faculty of Pharmacy, University of Lagos, Department of Clinical and Biopharmacy. So we welcome you tonight. I came the call tonight, Deputy Vice Chairman of the West African Postgraduate College of Pharmacists, Nigerian chapter. Dr. Additional, you are welcome tonight. Are you still with us?
Yes, I'm there. Thank you very much, Dr. Uju. Thank you very much. Very wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your coming. I also saw pharmacist BC Bright in call, and she came in right early before a lot of us. Pharmacist BC Bright happens to be the CEO of Live Well Initiative, a public health group, and she's doing a lot of public health work in Nigeria and across the regions. Pharmacist Bright, are you with us? Are you still with us? Okay, not very sure she's, okay, she's still on. Pharmacist Bright. Okay. Thank you very much. Maybe she'll be able to put in a word or two because like she said, she's in between two meetings. So but we appreciate you for coming much earlier to join this call tonight. So I would like us to quickly go to the questions. I'm sure we have our questions. Could you please raise your hand up electronically so that I could call upon you to ask your question? Hello? Do we have questions tonight? Or we have just been soaking in the presentation?
That's okay. I usually, when I give this presentation to the new pharmacists and residents in the Drug Information Center, they don't have questions right away.
Okay, I can see one hand raised up. I can see Dr.
Okay.
Olugbake's hand. Dr. Olugbake, you have the floor.
It's not actually a question. It's a comment, and I'm sure a lot of us are feeling this way. It's a lot to take in at once, so it's something we have to go back and practice to make sure we have understood all that you have said, because it's like I said, it's a lot to take in, and if you're not actually doing it physically, so you know exactly where you're going to go wrong or you're getting it right, it's difficult to actually have questions.
Right.
Okay, I feel you, Dr. Lubake. I felt the same way. There was so much to take in. You know, I was excited, but that limitation of not being able to practice is as she was going on. So definitely, I know that it's something that we need to go back to. And incidentally, I have an account with NCBI for about 7 years now. I never knew about this mesh search and how to improve my search exercise. So there's so much, you know, to learn tonight, and it will do ourselves a lot of good if we immediately go back after this presentation. I'm sure the recording will be available for us to access so that we can go back and actually do a physical hands-on with what we have learned tonight. I can also see Pharmacist Agada, your hand is raised up. You want to ask a question? You have the floor. Pharmacist Agada.
It's Dr. Felicia, not Agada. Dr. Felicia.
Okay, pharmacist who?
Felicia Williams.
Okay, so Pharmacist Williams, you have the floor, please.
Good evening, everyone. We appreciate the presentation so far. I would suggest that for it to be more interactive, if we can organize a workshop instead of a lecture, a workshop around this area, so that there will be hands-on training on this, so that individuals can benefit maximally. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pharmacist Felicia. That's a very, very key contribution. It's one I support, and I'm sure the members of the DIS steering committee would equally agree with it. For us to have a hands-on where everybody will sit with their laptop and we can actually follow the various lesson notes and be able to put to practice what we have learned tonight. Thank you very much. There's a comment from Pharmacist Rukayat Adamu. Okay, she's just appreciating the presentation. Okay, do we have any other question or comment or contribution? Okay, I would also like to acknowledge the presence of Dr. Mutia Atolulawal. I saw her in the call way back. She's the secretary of CPAN, Clinical Pharmacy Association of Nigeria, and would like to appreciate her. The Drug Information Specialty Group is actually a specialty group of the CPAN, and we appreciate the mother group for all the encouragement for us to break into our specialty areas and be more clinically relevant in our practices. Thank you so much to CPAN. In the absence of any other question, I would like to welcome the lead coordinator of the Drug Information Specialty Group in the person of Pharmacist Shade Lawal to make a vote of thanks and closing remarks. Pharmacist Shade Lawal, over to you, please. Pharmacist Shade Lawal, are you still on the call with us?
She's there. Kindly omit ma and go ahead. Okay.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much, Dr. Simde, for this very interesting lecture you gave us, and especially for the handouts, which I have downloaded, so I'm sure many people too would have. We'll take time to go through, and I'm sure it will make a lot of impact in our practice. We very much appreciate you for taking out this time this evening, despite your very busy schedule. Thank you to senior colleagues and colleagues who have taken out time to be part of this as well. I want to also appreciate God for this opportunity that He has given all of us. Thank you all, and God bless you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you so much, Pharmacist Shade Lawal. Would like to...
Sorry, Dr. Joe, before closing.
Over to you, Dr. Bello.
Before closing, I want to thank again Dr. Cindy for agreeing to come to us and share her expertise with us. Not only that, she has also linked us with other document specialists in the center, like Dr. Sarah and the other members, and they are actually coming on board to share their expertise with us soonest in the future by God's grace. So I want to thank you so much, Dr. Cindy, for that. The recordings of this meeting is available, and we usually download the handouts given to us, and it will be shared on our platform for those who are not present tonight. Thank you so much, everybody. God bless you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bello. Just before the closing prayer, I just want to remind us about what we stand for as the Drug Information Specialty Group. Our mission is really to build capacity of our members, to stimulate research, to promote use of information technology and clinical tools for best pharmacy practice. And in doing this, we promote specialization in drug information, and we seek to provide evidence-based and up-to-date drug information to ensure safe and effective use of medicine. So we welcome you to join our team and collaborate with us. We do put out a lot of lectures out there that we can benefit from time to time. So we want to encourage you to always be on the lookout. Personally, I'm excited about tonight's presentation, and I cannot wait to put into practice all that we have learned so far and be able to sharpen our skills as drug information specialists. So I would like the closing prayer to be given by Pharmacist Rukayat Adamu. Are you still on with us, Pharmacist Rukayat Adamu?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, let's have
good evening, everybody.
Closing prayer.
Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. In the name of Allah, the most understand, the most merciful. We thank Him for giving us this opportunity tonight to be among the living ones, to have this ample opportunity to be trained by someone with so much expertise, and we give God the glory for that. And we pray that whatever we've learned tonight will put in use for the benefit of our patients. In God's name we pray, amen.
Amen. Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone that joined us tonight. We appreciate you. We look forward to you coming again. Thank you very much, and God bless, and have a good night.
Everybody, thank you. Have a good night.
Good night.
You can unmute to say bye-bye, everyone. Let's hear your voices.
Good night, all.
Bye.
Bye.